Hi, everyone. Good. Very excited to have Jesse Krieger with us here today. Jesse has published a book, Lifestyle Entrepreneur, but he has also helped others publish over 20 books and is in the process of publishing dozens of other books this year. Plus, he's created his own online course and putting together an amazing summit that I think a lot of you would be interested in, which we'll talk about in a moment around books and authors and building your brand. And I do think it's something that many of you here maybe have already done or are interested in doing more with. So really excited to talk with Jesse about all things authors, courses, content creation. I know you've got some interesting processes around building your own courses that I'd love to learn a little bit more about. So welcome to the show. Hi, Jesse.
Thanks, Greg. Excited to be here. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Great. And if you do want to find out a little bit more about Jesse Krieger, that's JesseKrieger.com. Also for the summit, bookbusinessbrandsummit.com. A couple of other sites I'll mention as well. Lifestyleentrepreneurs.com? Yeah.
Lifestyle Entrepreneurs Press.
Entrepreneurs Press, right? Sorry.
That's right.
Excellent. And we'll of course throw all the links in the notes here so you can get access to all of those great resources. Excellent. So to dive in, so you're in the book space and the course space, so very much all about the sort of, I guess, building brand, building passive revenue, all around expertise. Love to just hear kind of your story of how you first got involved in that. Yeah,
certainly. I mean, depending, I always wonder how far back to go with, my story. I've been an entrepreneur my whole adult life, started in the music industry, had a rock band. Ultimately, my first business was a record label to keep creative control over our music career. And so at age 21, I incorporated my first company and got a group of investors, got an informal board of advisors, hired a team, we executive produced our own record. That led to being able to tour the country twice, had our music on hundreds of radio stations and MTV. And so I think sort of out of the gate, I just summed up 3+ years in like 15 seconds there. but the net effect from that whole experience, which was a ton of work, a lot of trial by fire, but also some initial successes, which I think validated me to pursue a life of entrepreneurship. Through that process, I drew the connection that business and entrepreneurship can be and is a creative act. Before that, I just thought, music is creative, art is creative, business is boring and stupid. And then once I married those two, I was sold. And then throughout my 20s, I founded or co-founded 5 different businesses in a variety of fields, from renewable energy to promotional products to even had a stint as a dating coach. And as I was getting close to turning 30, a lot of people had asked me, what is your process, or why are you involved in all these different things? And I myself was wondering, what am I up to with all of this? So I sat down to start writing the book that became Lifestyle Entrepreneur. And that's how I got into the author space. Ultimately, that led me into the publishing space and a lot of other exciting stuff.
Excellent. So in the publishing space, you work with entrepreneurs, with experts, people who are looking to get a book out and help them get that out and published?
Yeah, I mean, through my publishing company and my work with authors, I'm primarily working with people that have personal development focused books, healthy lifestyles, business and entrepreneurship, and now even moving into some spiritually oriented titles. And, I don't know if you can read it, but on this little banner of me there, an author actually gave me the tagline they said, Jesse, you're the author's secret weapon. And I was like, I like the sound of that. And, I think through my experience as an entrepreneur and my experience as an author working with 2 different publishers and having my book become a bestseller, sort of become uniquely positioned to help authors through almost all stages of the process, really being able to add value once their book is largely done. Mm-hmm. And taking that through the process of editing, getting a great looking cover design, all the formatting and publishing, but then planning strategically a book launch that helps position their book as their best business development tool.
Yeah. Which of course we know is an important part. I mean, it's similar to courses where the last thing you want is you do all of this work as the expert, as the person with all this knowledge, and then you're not able to share it with as many people as you want because you flop on the launch or you flop on actually getting it out there and delivering it to people. So hugely important part of the whole process.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with a few authors that had gone the self-publishing route and were just disappointed. They had spent months working on a book, many more months learning all the intricacies of self-publishing, and then sold like 40 books. And they're like, how is this even worth it? And so, I think a lot of the value, or at least what a lot of authors tell me, the reason that they decided to work with me is that we'd move beyond just publishing in the sense of making a book available for sale, but actually execute the book launch for them. And that moves hundreds, if not 1,000 plus copies. So at least you get the experience of having a reach with your message, with your words that you've spent so much time working on. And I think that's what a lot of authors are looking for ultimately.
And that ties into so you have your own online course, right? And that's bestsellercampaignblueprint.com. Is that tie into, that similar process to that?
Yeah, I mean, as I started doing publishing work and doing book launches sort of informally, when I decided to get serious about it and build a publishing company around it, I created this author training program, which you mentioned, Bestseller Campaign Blueprint. And as the name suggests, it's sort of a roadmap to how to go from where the book's just about done being written through to being completed, looking great, setting up ways to build an audience and an online presence, building anticipation for a launch, executing the launch, and then accelerating that momentum into whatever is next, whether that's coaching, training, live events, masterminding. Where part of the strategy is how this book plays into their broader business and brand.
Excellent. Great. So I'm curious, so you've gone through the course creation journey. It looks like a pretty amazing comprehensive course you have there. One thing I always sort of run into is what is that process of the content production and putting it together, and your process basically of putting together a course, especially considering you've seen it from the book side, you've written a book and you've helped people with books. What kind of processes do you put in place for building that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I'd say two things. I mean, one, if you've written a book and you're saying, where do we go from here? Building an online course is a great next step. And a few reasons for that. One is just from an author publisher perspective, a book has a very low price point, but arguably a very high value, right? You could buy a $20 book and it could change your life. But on the other hand, a training course, something that explicitly takes you from point A to point B and shows you every step of the way, what to look out for, etc., is intrinsically more valuable. And so, if you're looking at my site, I charge $997 for my course, whereas you can get a copy of my book for, if you get it in Kindle, like, $8, right? So there's a huge price differential. And I have a separate course that's more focused on the ideas in lifestyle entrepreneur. But for Bestseller Campaign Blueprint, I started with a content framework, and that's what organized my thought process in terms of creating the different training modules, ultimately getting down to what I'm going to talk about and teach and give exercises on in each step. For me, I call it the big idea framework. And so IDEA is therefore an acronym for Ignite, Develop, Execute, and Accelerate your best-selling book launch. And so if you're coming into creating a course, or you're thinking about how do I get started creating a course, I encourage people to think about the superstructure. And so, I've got a 4-part content framework, and then I have 2 training modules on each one of those. So ultimately, I've delivered it as an 8-week live online course, where I'm doing it as each module as a live webinar that's interactive and being recorded. Yeah. And I've also created videos that people can take part in this as an evergreen program, but it flows from that same the actual course itself and the experience I think of as a subset of that overarching content framework that has a built-in promise for what people are going to learn, gain, benefit from taking part in it.
Excellent. That's great. Yeah. And I definitely identify with that concept of you're saying the book sort of value and price points here. And you no matter how valuable that book is, and I've certainly read $30 books that have changed my life, you can't go out and price it at the value that it could deliver, like $500. And I was speaking with someone recently, David Meerman Scott, who's got a $25 book, Newsjacking, and then he's got I'll come and speak at your conference for $30,000. And he said, he just had nothing in the middle. So that's where the course came in for him. And actually often ends up generating more total revenue than any of the other things combined.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And my approach is, so say, you have an author, a number of authors that have online courses, but to the extent that that's built at the time the book's coming out, we'll put in a shout out for the course in the book, usually right after the cover, so that, as we're getting distribution on the book, sometimes even at a very low price point, like a 99-cent Kindle launch or something, get it into a lot of people's hands. Now a book is great in the sense that, one, it gives you the opportunity to get to know the author, get familiar with their thoughts, their ideas, their philosophy, their approach. And if you like that, then it's great to have a springboard right there that bounces you into a next step you can take with them. And so I think the beautiful relationship between having a book and an online course is, if you read the book, you say, okay, but how do I actually do this?
Yeah.
What do you know? Come over here and get step-by-step training, support, interactive group, however you've structured your course to expand on and fulfill the promise that begins in the book.
Yeah, I 100% sold on that. In fact, hearing you say that, I'm getting into the Rockefeller Habits for building a fast growing company. And so I've read some books on it, but then the actual implementation. So I actually went and took a day-long workshop course on implementation. Now for that stuff, it's just the tip of the iceberg, but it's getting into it and actually helping you on the implementation and walking through that. So you're right. That's pretty awesome value add there.
Totally is. I'd be interested to actually check that course out.
Yeah. Well,
I do a lot of implementation. I'm always wondering, how can I be more productive and efficient?
Definitely. Yeah. It's worth it. It's good stuff for sure. Awesome. So then, there's tons of other stuff I want to ask you, but I think one of the biggest ones for a lot of people too, is that you probably have a lot of experience on the publishing and launching side, and even for your own audience, is the audience building. And so I'll kind of leave it open-ended, take it where you want, but anything on the audience building side is always super useful, I know, for our audience as well.
Sure. So I think the right way to approach that question is, I see a lot of authors make the mistake of creating their book in a vacuum. And I've seen this with online course creation too, in which case it's even more painful. But you create your book like in isolation, you're writing, you're working on it. And then one day you just pop out like Jack in the Box and say, hey, I've got this book, it's done. Like, go get a copy right now. And nobody has any idea that you've been working on a book. So my approach for audience building, list building, what have you, is to start to incorporate or bring people into the process at some point, if not while you're creating the book itself, definitely from the point at which the book is done leading up to the launch, which I find 6 to 8 weeks is a really good, realistic time frame. And there's a few ways to go about doing that. One thing that I've done that's been successful and I do quite commonly is just have a simple lead page or a landing page that's giving the sample chapters to the book. So the first 50 pages or what have you, in exchange for somebody's name and email. And so if you want to get people engaging with the content, directly engaging with the content you've written about, why not give away the sample chapters? Share that around with friends and family. Instead of just telling them I've been working on a book and it's coming out soon, say, grab the sample chapters here and be notified for when the book launches. So if you just have this simple two simple web pages, a landing page and a thank you page, now somebody's opted in, they get the sample chapters for your book. Now they're on the thank you page. And from there, you can say, well, look, check your inbox in just a moment. I'm excited to share the sample chapters for my book with you. And here's the next thing you can do. Hop over to our book launch private Facebook group and meet other like-minded, fill in the blank with whatever you're writing about, and start to bring people into, say, a private Facebook group. Now you have two ways of communicating with them. They're on your email list and they're in a Facebook group. Most people are on Facebook. And in a private group, if you share or post something, then they're going to be notified. Whereas if they're just your friend on Facebook, they may not see, and you won't get the same reach and distribution. Plus, you can do a community building effect and run a contest and all sorts of other ways to generate engagement leading up to your actual book launch. So if you do it right, over 6 to 8 weeks, you can build this arc of engagement and enthusiasm. So when your actual book launch date rolls around, you're not just starting the process from there. And well, that's definitely one way, and another, say, just a different variation on the similar approach is to give a complimentary resource or training if you're not going to give away the sample chapters for your book. Mm-hmm. So we published a book called The Art of Resignation, and it was basically how to quit your job gracefully and move into the next stage of your career. And instead of giving away sample chapters, we had like the top 5 resources you need to effectively quit your job and move on to the more exciting next stage of your career. And I think the actual headline we used, because we split tested it, was the top 5 resources to quit your miserable job. That's why, but apparently a lot of people are miserable in their jobs, so that tested well. But in that case, we're giving away a PDF. It was just a few pages. Yeah. And then same strategy. Now people are engaging with your ideas, and you've got the beginning of a relationship that can be developed towards not only supporting your book launch, but of course, enrolling in an online training course or becoming a client of some shape or form.
Yeah, and they're great methods, definitely, and I could see them working quite well for courses. In fact, I think I've seen a few people do, well, definitely the sort of lead magnet thing where you've got that little giveaway to the PDF kind of thing to attract the email address. The sample chapter is an interesting one. Certainly, I'm always signing up for George Martin's sample chapters of Game of Thrones. So it works for me for sure, but I could see doing that for the online courses as well, where you're, even if you have that first video or thing that you're releasing that people can get access to, or the first lesson, or even a live event or something. And I love, you kind of just brushed over it quickly, but getting them into that Facebook group and then doing something like a contest, because you might drive 50, 100 people if you've got a smaller reach to go and grab that initial thing or hop into that Facebook group. Or say you even bring in 1,000 people, but if you can then leverage those people with something like a social contest, and I'm on this for sure because we actually just did kind of a webinar on doing social contests in some really cool ways for authors and course creators. I could totally see leveraging that, and then you take your group of 100 or 1,000 and turn it into 10 times that pretty quickly.
Well, I definitely want to, when we're going to have you on the Book Business and Brand Building Summit, I want to go into depth on what you learned in that process for sure. And maybe I can just dive into a little bit more. Once you've got people in a group, you're starting to build this audience that, and again, it's important. This isn't just your friends and family and random people These are people that have raised their hand and are like, I'm interested in the topic of your book and learning about your book and reading some part of your book. So, in terms of a contest, you can get creative with it. Like, somebody's time is usually valued at the higher end of the spectrum. So I'd set a contest where, either myself or the author is giving away a 1-hour deep dive strategy session on X, Y, and Z, or, a 40 or runner-up would get, a 30-minute one-to-one call to uncover something that's in relation to what the book is itself about. But then you can do other things, like if you have an online course, you can, or if you're developing an online course, you can set as a prize, free enrollment in your online training program. And then what do people actually do to win this? Well, that's where you can get creative. Like, there's one thing called Thunderclap, where you basically commit to or automatically schedule social media posts to go out through your account on the launch day. And so if you commit to doing a bunch of social media promo or other things, now you're lining up actual promotional firepower as people are entering a contest and thereby having a chance to win valuable prizes. That's a good setup all around because it brings people further into your business and brand. If you're getting on the phone with them for a strategy session, at the end of that strategy session, they've gotten a direct experience of what it's like to work with you. Now maybe they become a client, or they know somebody that they definitely want to refer to you that would be a great fit. So there's all types of positive outcomes from doing contests that involve engaging further with the people that you've brought in on something that's very, I think, a low threshold to say, give me your name and email and I'll send you the sample chapters for my book. I just see this as a progression. The relationship is a progression from discovering you out of the blue online to getting in just the front door to starting to engage a little bit more in a group and meeting other like-minded people, to having a direct experience of working with or learning from you, to becoming a high-end client that has a total lifetime value of 5 figures plus perhaps. And it's funny you mentioned somebody had a book and then a keynote speech for $30,000 and nothing in between.
Yeah.
That's a big gap to span, right? And I see an online course is a great middle tier offering on that total spectrum that goes from $15 book to $15,000 keynote fee.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that you're mentioning the engagement side too. It's interesting. I think it might be a little tougher to do with a book, I guess, but I find when people start to engage on the online course with their audience early in the process, is it can even help to shape the course itself or even future versions of it, or you get that feedback and then you say, okay, maybe this part wasn't that clear, but I guess you can do that's like second edition, right?
Yeah. Now I'm happy to peel back the curtain and share something that might be of great value to the Thinkific audience here. When I created Bestseller Campaign Blueprint, and I've shared this before, so it's not like first time exclusive reveal, but it's useful because the same way that you can create a book in a vacuum and not interact with other people and just, go heads down in writing, if you do that with an online course, you really run the risk of missing the mark, of not meeting the market exactly where you can be of greatest service and where people are specifically looking for training on the subject. So here's how to avoid that. I mean, for me, I knew I wanted to roll out an author training program because it plays into my broader business strategy as a publisher. And so I had the opportunity to be on an online summit called the Superhero Summits, run by Marisa Murgatroyd, who I admire very much as a mentor of mine. And on that summit, I had a live audience of around 500 people, and I got to make an offer at the end of it. So I was like, I'm gonna offer Bestseller Campaign Blueprint, and I hadn't even built it yet. But what I did know was I had the framework, the idea framework that I talked about.
Yeah.
I put up the basic, page with 3 to 4 sentences of what you'll learn in each module. On that page, there was a few bonuses, some sales copy, but I hadn't actually built the course. Yeah. And so here's the thing. Here's the beautiful thing. So I launched it there. I got over 70 people enrolled in the course. I hadn't even created it. And there was a 2.5 week gap between the webinar and when the first live online training module took place.
Yeah.
What do you think I did in those 2.5 weeks?
Worked your ass off.
Yes, but and what else? What else?
Engaged with all the people to find out why they'd signed up and what they wanted.
Bingo. So when people signed up, they went right away into a private Facebook group, and I kept the excitement and the tempo high in there, and I ran a few polls, was asking people, and yes, I worked my butt off to create the first 2 weeks of training, and I basically decided internally I wanted to stay 2 weeks ahead of the curve.
Right.
So I was building module 3 right after I finished teaching module 1. And that allows for a feedback loop, so that it was very successful ultimately. The people that went through in that first group, which was about 80 some people, at the end of the course, my next offer was, look, I just showed you front to back how to create a great looking book, all these things, launch it and build your business with it. If you want me and my team to just do it all for you, then let's set up a call to talk about my done for you publishing and bestseller book launch package. And then that was a springboard from the training program into a higher ticket price publishing services package. And at that point, people had gotten a lot of value, a lot of experience in what it's like to work with me and learn from me. Ideally, in the best case, a lot of trust that I know what I'm talking about and know what I'm doing. So it was actually relatively short gap from something that was priced in the hundreds of dollars to something in the many thousands of dollars. And I think that maybe illustrates the other side of the, we talked about going from a book to an online course. An online course is still, I consider that a middle of the road offering. You can have much higher priced offerings that are done for you or one-on-one or things of this nature that that you can offer on the back side of people that go through your course.
Yeah. And definitely you see, someone takes a course and there are a segment of people who will say, great, you gave me all the tools, I can do it myself. And then there's a good segment of people who say, great, now I understand how much work's involved. You're the expert, do it for me. I'm willing to pay for it, which is great as well.
And it's good for both people, right?
Yeah.
Because I got my first handful of high-end done-for-you publishing clients on the back end of running that course. But at the same time, I got to follow the progress of people that went through all of the training and implemented it and did it themselves. Then they pop back up in the Facebook group saying, hey, I finally got through it all and I'm getting ready to launch my book. So it's sort of have it your way. It's not like a bait and switch where, the course was just one more step towards my real offer where you learn how to do it. I actually did teach people everything that I could think of in 14 hours of video. But like you said, right, if you're busy, if you're an executive, if you just don't have the inclination to learn a whole new skill set, that's where it's valuable to have the offer that just basically does it for them. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I think even if someone goes for that higher level, there's still huge value in taking the course because you get that you've essentially trained them to work with you, and it'll probably save you and them more time in just having an overall understanding of how the process is going to go. In fact, if I had something like that myself, and I have in the past had things like that where I'll do the one-on-one stuff, and I would take my expensive one-on-one clients and give them the course for free just to say, look, start here and then we'll understand and we'll be speaking the same language when we work together. And big value there for people as well.
I mean, that's actually a really good segue to how I view my overall business model, which is something along the lines of, like, at the bottom, you've got free content and then a book as a low priced offering, then a training program or an audio program that's up here, and then a done for you service, and then one-on-one client work. And moving up the ladder, it's higher price point and deeper engagement. So if somebody comes in and just says, I know I want to work with you for done for you publishing, I'll give them everything else that's below it.
Yeah.
And so it's like you were mentioning, Greg, if somebody hires me and my team to do publishing and book launch, I'll give them free access to my whole training course, because then they can self-educate to the extent they want to about the process that we're going to take their book through. And it saves me a lot of time and energy. And it's an additional level of sort of social proof that, not only do I do this as a done for you, but I created a comprehensive training program that explains every step of the process.
Excellent. And I think that's definitely something that for those of you out there watching who have your own, maybe you've started with an online course or you've started with a book, it's pretty amazing when you start to consider these different levels of product and tiers, what you can do with your overall business and just overall levels of revenue. And really for the people who are retiring off this whole lifestyle entrepreneur business style, usually you'll see them having multiple price points, multiple product offerings. And so if you're being successful with one, but you're thinking that's not enough for me to kind of blow it out of the water and buy that dream home or whatever else it is that you're going for, when you start to add these different price points and product points, it can really take the whole business for you. Plus you get to reach so many more people on different levels and have higher levels, because you can't help everyone with a book. Some people just don't get enough out of it. You can't help everyone with a course. You can't help it, and then you start to get into those higher levels where you can help everybody. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I think that same sort of spectrum, there's an analog of how much of a self-starter people are in terms of the value they'll get out of it. Like some of my free content, I have a free video training series. If somebody's really a self-starter, they could watch that and accomplish a lot. But then, if somebody reads a book and applies what's in there, they can accomplish a lot too. Somebody goes through a training course, now I'm literally spelling it all out step by step. And then if somebody wants done for you, then they're presumably focused on really being the voice, being the face for their message, and having a team in place to support them. And at the one-on-one level, it's super specific to exactly what they're dealing with at any given point in time. And I just think that that's an interesting analog on the price points and the depth of service provided compared to how much of a self-starter, how much people want to tackle and learn and accomplish on their own versus bringing in outside support.
Excellent. So I do want to get to your summit. You've got the Book Business and Brand Summit. I'm going to be speaking at it, which I'm really excited about. And I know there's a lot of crossover between course creators and authors. A lot of our audience is already authors. Some of them I'm sure are considering it. And I think it's worth considering if you have a successful course out there to think another thing that you could add to your stable of products would be the book. So maybe fill us in a little bit about what's going on with the Book Business and Brand Summit.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on Thinkific TV, Greg. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm excited to switch seats with you and interview you and get inside your head on, I'm sure you have a deep level of insight on course creation. So we'll do that. So the Book Business and Brand Building Summit is a live online event taking place June 20th to 30th. Greg will be on Saturday, June 25th, and excited to have him live there. So that's live in the sense that you can interact with us, ask questions. It'll be a fun event. And it's really for people that are, existing authors looking at how to leverage their book to build your business and brand. Or perhaps you're an entrepreneur, a business owner thinking about writing a book to expand your reach and get more clients that are pre-qualified and saying, yes, I know that I want to work with you and your business. It's also for what I call the someday author, somebody that knows they want to write a book. And that's the majority of people, as it turns out, but is unclear on some step of the process or has doubts or hesitations. We're going to give you a comprehensive overview of all of the opportunities that are available to you as an author. And I encourage you to join us. It's free to participate. And that's at bookbusinessbrandsummit.com.
Excellent. And we'll share all the links with this. And actually something that I don't think anyone here knows about me, I don't share often other than maybe within my family, because to some extent it's a little embarrassing. I have an online course and that's been around. I created the first version of it 10 years ago and I've had iterations. And I really haven't touched it much in the last 5 years. But the beautiful thing is it's fully the lifestyle entrepreneur kind of business or passive revenue. It just sits there and works for me when I'm not working on it. But I have 2/3 of a book written. So maybe 3/4 even. I've got a binder sitting at home, file on the computer in Dropbox. That's just the meat of the book is written. And I just kind of need it. And I probably wrote that 5-6 years ago. And it's still, the nice thing is my subject matter hasn't changed at all. So I'm kind of excited about this summit because my actual plan eventually, and I might have to just get a done for you situation or get somebody to finish that for me, is to pull that book together, publish it, and then sell it on the same side of the course. Because the course for me has, I think, roughly I see 30,000, 40,000 visitors a month going through that site. The course price point for me is about $400. So I would love to have a $30, $40, $50 price point book that I could sell alongside the course or in addition to or instead of, and just have another offering there for people so I could reach. I love the amount of people that I can reach with my course, but at $400, not everybody can afford it. At a $40, $50 price point book, I could get to so many more people. So I'm stoked for this summit. I'm going to be there to learn too. And I think for people who have courses, it's definitely another thing to consider adding.
Awesome. Well, I heard you say the words "done for you," and it would be my honor to help you and have you wind up on the Wall of Fame here too.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Jesse, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time here. Anything else that we missed that you really wanted to cover here?
Honestly, Greg, I think we covered a lot of ground in 40, 45 minutes. And if you made it this far, thanks for watching. I hope this was valuable, and see you on the summit.
Awesome. Great. And so for more info, the summit is bookbusinessbrandsummit.com, and more info about Jesse at jessekrieger.com. That's KRIEGER, and Jesse, JESSE, jessekrieger.com. And we'll put all the links in with the video. So if you want to check out more, learn more about publishing or writing books, and come check out the summit.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody.